In the summer of 2025, a small research team did something that almost never happens in modern astronomy. They asked to interrupt the observing schedule of the most in-demand telescope ever built, and they got a yes within days. Normally, that kind of request takes months of review. Normally, a dozen other teams are waiting in line ahead of you. But this request wasn't normal. 7 weeks earlier, a survey camera in Chile had picked up a faint smudge of light moving in a way that didn't match anything in our solar system. Scientists suggested it wasn't just another comet. It was something that had never been inside our solar system before, and might never come back. Nobody wanted to say out loud what everyone was quietly thinking. If this object was truly from outside our solar system, it might be older than the Sun itself. Here's why that mattered so much. In all of recorded history, humans had only ever confirmed 2 objects passing through from interstellar space. One in 2017, one in 2019. Both were gone before scientists could get more than a rough look. This third one was different. Researchers realized they might have enough warning time to actually study it properly before it vanished forever. That window doesn't come twice. Once an interstellar object leaves, it never returns. Whatever secrets it's carrying about the galaxy outside our own solar neighborhood, this was the only chance anyone alive would get to read them. And the deeper scientists looked, the less this particular visitor behaved like anything they expected. The object was first flagged on July 1, 2025, by an automated sky scanning network called ATLAS, short for the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System. ATLAS exists to catch dangerous space rocks early, but this time it caught something stranger than a rock. Astronomers gave it the name 3I/Atlas, the 3I simply meaning the third confirmed interstellar object ever detected. Ground telescopes tracked its path and quickly ruled out any danger to Earth. It was never going to hit us. It was just passing through, on a straight one-way trip from somewhere else in the galaxy, headed toward the Sun, and then back out into deep space forever. That should have been the end of the story. A visitor arrives, gets measured, gets logged, and leaves. But researchers requesting time on the James Webb Space Telescope weren't chasing a routine measurement. They wanted to know what this thing was actually made of, because early readings were already refusing to match anything in the textbook. In August of 2025, Webb pointed its infrared spectrograph at the object for the first time. What came back didn't look like data from a normal comet. The ratio of carbon dioxide to water was far higher than anything astronomers had measured in a solar system comet before. Comets from our own neighborhood carry a fairly consistent chemical fingerprint, shaped by 4.5 billion years of sitting in roughly the same environment around the same star. This object's fingerprint didn't match that pattern at all. Scientists suggested that whatever built this thing, it wasn't built here. And that raised an uncomfortable question nobody had a clean answer for yet. If its chemistry didn't match anything in our solar system, what environment could actually produce it? This is the part that confuses a lot of people watching this unfold, because it sounds like a small detail. It isn't. Every star system that has ever formed leaves a kind of chemical signature behind, based on how much radiation, heat, and heavy elements were floating around at the time. Think of it like a fingerprint left at a scene long before anyone knew a crime would ever be investigated. Older regions of the galaxy have different fingerprints than younger ones, because the raw materials floating in space slowly change over billions of years as stars are born, live, and die. If an object's fingerprint doesn't match our solar systems, researchers can work backward and estimate roughly when and where it actually formed. And the numbers coming off this object weren't pointing to somewhere nearby. They were pointing somewhere very far back in time. As more data came in, a handful of researchers started asking a harder question in public. Could an object this chemically strange be something other than a natural comet? One prominent astrophysicist listed more than a dozen unusual traits and suggested, cautiously, that a technological origin shouldn't be ruled out completely. Among the details he pointed to, the object appeared to keep releasing gas from its sunward side, even after swinging past the sun and being deflected onto a new path. Behavior, he argued, was harder to explain with simple ice melting alone. He also noted unusual metal ratios in earlier readings that reminded him of industrial refining processes here on Earth, although most other scientists considered that comparison a stretch rather than solid evidence. Other astronomers pushed back hard, arguing that unexpected does not automatically mean unnatural. and that comets from unfamiliar environments should be expected to behave in unfamiliar ways. The debate stayed unresolved through the fall of 2025, playing out across research papers and public statements, while the object kept moving. And that disagreement is exactly why so many people felt uneasy. When scientists can't fully agree on an explanation, and the machine doing the measuring is the most advanced telescope ever built, it becomes very hard to just relax and wait for an answer. If you're tracking how far into this story we're roughly at the middle, and this is exactly where most coverage at the time moved on to other headlines, right as the actual explanation was still being built behind the scenes. What came next wasn't the confirmation anyone expected, and it wasn't the answer anyone had been bracing for either. In December of 2025, after the object had already swung past the sun and started heading back out of the solar system, Webb was pointed at it a second time, using a different instrument built to detect heat directly rather than reflected light. This time, researchers got something nobody had ever captured before: a direct detection of methane gas coming from an interstellar object. That detection alone was historic, but the timing of it was what caught scientists off guard. The methane didn't show up early, when the object first warmed near the sun. It showed up late, almost as an afterthought, which researchers now believe means the methane ice was buried deep beneath the surface, insulated from the sun's heat for a very long time. Combined with a separate reading, an extremely high level of a heavy form of hydrogen called deuterium, researchers were able to work out roughly how old this object actually is. Their estimate, somewhere between 10 and 12 billion years old. For comparison, our own sun and solar system are about 4.5 billion years old. This object had likely finished forming before our sun even existed. It wasn't evidence of a machine. It was evidence of something almost harder to process: a frozen fragment of the galaxy itself, sealed since a time before Earth was even a possibility. Here's why that answer, even though it ruled out the scarier explanation, didn't feel like pure relief to the scientists involved. An object nearly 3 times older than our solar system means the raw material for comets, and possibly the raw material for life-building chemistry, has been drifting through the galaxy since long before our sun ignited. Researchers pointed out that this changes how we should think about the odds of life existing elsewhere. If the basic chemical ingredients have been circulating the galaxy for over 10 billion years, then the conditions for building something like a solar system, and maybe something like life, may not be rare at all. They may simply be very old, and very well hidden, drifting silently between stars for longer than our entire planet has existed. It's worth being clear about what NASA and most working astronomers actually said publicly during this period, because online coverage didn't always match it. NASA never described the object as artificial. Official statements consistently described it as an ancient natural comet, unusual in its chemistry, but consistent with a comet, not a machine. The technological origin idea came from a small number of individual scientists speaking publicly, not from any space agency's official position. That distinction matters, because headlines calling it a possible alien spacecraft technically described a real, published hypothesis, but overstated how many scientists actually supported it. The far more widely accepted explanation, backed by the direct chemical measurements, was always the ancient comet. And then, just like that, the window started closing. By early 2026, the object had moved far enough from the sun that it was fading past the point where most instruments could study it in detail. Researchers understood this would be their only real opportunity. Once it leaves, there's no second visit. No return trip in 2028. No follow-up window years later like some near-Earth asteroids get. Whatever wasn't measured in these final months simply won't get measured, ever. This isn't expected to be a one-time event either. A newly operational sky survey, called the Vera Rubin Observatory, running out of Chile, is expected to sharply increase how many interstellar objects we catch passing through in the years ahead, potentially spotting several more within this decade alone, which means the debate that played out around this object, natural versus something stranger, unexplained chemistry versus known physics, is very likely coming back, soon. And each time, researchers will have less warning and less time to get a clean answer before the object disappears for good. What Webb actually found wasn't a machine, and it wasn't nothing either. It found a piece of the galaxy older than our own star, sealed shut since long before Earth existed, passing close enough to study for a few short months before vanishing forever. And it leaves one question sitting quietly in the dark, long after the telescope moved on to something else. How many more of these ancient visitors have already slipped through unseen? And what might the next one show us before it disappears too?